Hello, welcome back, everybody. And we will be continuing our series of soft tissue, which we went over in a couple of videos. And we will be making the transfer to hard targets, bone targets. Okay? You have to excuse me, get a little bit of thing in my throat. I have allergies here. As I have said before, I'm going to start throwing people some bones because I'm really kind of flattered that people have taken some time to watch some of these and even make some comments. I like that. I appreciate it. It's the videos, while they're not for that purpose, they will be eventually. So I want to reward those people with something that you can kind of take with you at all times. And you could consider these of a sort to be secrets in the martial arts, okay? So, when we talked about soft tissue targets, we talked about how to strike them, how to grab them, okay? And we also talked that, in fact, excuse me, the most basic division are the soft and hard targets. If you actually research these different distinctions that people make in the martial arts, a lot of them come from things that people said that became popular, okay? The idea of internal and external systems, things like that. Those are not necessarily exactly how traditional things were categorized. I've explained the metaphysics before, and I will do so briefly again. Your chi has different densities, and those densities are what forms everything in the universe, okay? Starting from the 10,000 things, wu wei, okay, non-being, sprouting being, the polarity of the two. You need non-being for being, and hard and soft are basically different distinctions for the chi as it forms. If you wanted to look at this comparatively, it's similar to when a scientist who studies the body looks at body tissues. Your body tissues all have different formations based on specialized function. So they have different densities, different properties. Your liver tissue is not the same as your skin, as your eyeball, as your nail, etc. So think of it like that. When you're studying the targets and how to attack the targets, your very basic distinction is the different densities of chi, starting with softer tissues and harder bone tissues. I mean, bone technically is a type of body tissue, although we don't think of it that way. Just like our brain is really the nub of our whole nervous system. It's not necessarily, as we perceive it in the West, to be a separate CPU, okay? Just trying to point these out. It'll make it a little easier to understand things. When we talked about the soft tissues and how to strike them, we talked about how to grab, how to rip, proper way to grab flesh, okay? Things that we strike with, areas where we strike, okay? And one of the things that we can generalize is when you're trying to grab flesh and control it, you want to either do so in vital areas or you want to go where the nerves are mostly active because you'll get a reaction that way. We also don't want to continually just grab an area and stay there because your body habituates to that. So again, think of this as a review, but you want to go right into whatever you're doing. So a lot of these target areas are deadly in and of themselves. They allow you to throw a person, rip a person, etc. But you always want to be ready to transition and not simply rely on, oop, I poked you in the eye, okay? We'll get into that when we finish the hard targets. So with that, let's get started on a hard target. So you hear words for this, Koppo Jutsu. Many of the styles of karate and other martial arts that came out of the Okinawan Peninsula deal with hard targets, okay? striking the bones, okay, and striking with the bones, okay. Characteristically, when you're hitting bone targets, you have to pay attention to the universals, your distance, your timing, but other important elements that are particular are things like how you're attacking that particular target. You want to generally try to limit the force that you use per the pounds of pressure so that, for example, if I'm hitting you with this, that's a lot more pressure than with this because this is a smaller area, okay? You also want to watch your angle, okay? This is a very important thing that's often overlooked, okay? So when you're hitting, the things that you hit with are pretty obvious. You have your hands. Any target that you have, it's either protected by some flesh or not. And one of the things to remember this way is you can hit with almost any part of your body if you know how you're hitting, okay? So for example, this is right near this. You cannot hit with this. You'll shock yourself, okay? But this, even though it doesn't look like much, it's actually a pretty hard target because you don't have much flesh there. So when you strike with this, okay, that's a target you can use to hit, okay? I'm going to point out some more esoteric, not the ones that not the targets you're familiar with. Okay, this little bone here on your wrist. Okay, you'll find if you take your finger and you rub it, you see that little lump? Okay, this is a small bone. Think of that as a little ballpoint hammer, okay? You can attack sensitive areas with that, okay? If somebody grabs you, you can strike them to areas like this, okay? Or to their wrist, okay? Or even if you can find a target that is not connected with much flesh, okay? But you want to use a relatively basic strike and you don't want to put all your weight behind it because that's not a very powerful bone, okay? It's just something that you might hit with to, boom, get a quick reaction to follow up with something else, okay? Um, when you're attacking the face, okay, this should be hit. The knockout most directly comes from hitting the tip of the chin and hitting it in such a way that there's no place for the head to move. Okay, so when you hit this, you don't so much want it to swing up. You want it to hit and the force to go right into your brainstem and slam your brain against your skull casing. Okay, so this you want to hit with as small target area as you can, but if you use more force, depending on your hand conditioning, and I'm not talking about destroying your hands, I'm talking about the strength in your hands that you develop over your training, okay, then you might be able to use just one knuckle like for that strike, even a small knuckle in the back of the fist, okay? The idea is when you get the angle right here is that the force doesn't go up here. It goes right here. And because there's no place for your body to respond, okay, it goes right into your brainstem, okay? So that's that knockout, okay? It's right on the button here, okay? That's a copal target. You can also do that with a downward strike with this. You can do that with this. This doesn't look like much, but it's a pure bone target, and you can strike that very successfully because it's bone on bone. Again, it's a whipping action with this strike as opposed to more forceful action and a more of a weight shifting action when you're hitting with your fist, okay? But you can do that, and you can actually hit up and down on the jaw and dislocate it, okay? So also you have your temples, of course, okay? You can hit with these, the side of your thumb, okay? Right to the temple, okay? You can do that as a pushing movement, okay? After an eye gouge, a koshi or shitojutsu type of movement here, you can hit with this around or back this way, okay? That has a great effect, okay? Followed up with some sort of a flesh ripping, okay? You can strike with your empty hands the skull, okay, as you dislocate, okay? Boom, boom. When you do that, you don't go this way, okay? You go at an angle, okay? And that will dislocate the neck, okay? And again, with this palm and this palm, you can do that pretty easily, okay? With a whipping action. Okay, we're going to go to the second part of the series in a minute here, okay?